Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
This is Kerry Lutz on the financialsurvivalnetwork.com, 1230 WBZT, and it's time for another Triple Lutz report. This is episode 331. The date is January 13th, 2013. First up, I love that movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, just because I felt it was really authentic in spite of the incessant use of the F word. I just love Leonardo DiCaprio. I think he's just a phenomenal actor, but you know all that. So he's the kind of guy, he'll be back in jail before you know it. He's just a ne'er-do-well, a lovable ne'er-do-well in some respects, as long as you didn't lose money with him, which tens of thousands of people did. And I looked at his YouTube page, his Facebook page, and hey, if he can just train salespeople, train people as a motivational speaker, he should be okay, but he's not going to be happy with that for long, I assure you. So he wrote 2 books about his life as the Wolf of Wall Street. And look, they're stealing trillions on Wall Street. He managed to steal 100, 200 million. He's a bit player, always was a bit player, but $100 million buys you a lot. And like I said, now he's a prominent motivational speaker, at least in his own mind, and federal prosecutors say he's sending mixed messages. So the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York said that Belfort owed $100 million to investors who lost money in the 1990s doing business with Stratton Oakmont, which is the now defunct Long Island brokerage firm that he founded. And Belfort wants the public to know that he's doing everything he can to make those investors whole. I got to believe it's more than $100 million because I think there's interest that accrues on these settlements normally. But let's just assume that it's $100 million. And this quote from Belfort on his Facebook page kind of sums it up. He said, "For the record, I am not turning over 50% of the profits of the books and the movie, which was what the government had wanted me to do. Instead, I insisted on turning over 100% of the profits." Well, what is the definition of profits? You know that term, if you look at Hollywood accounting, they never make any money on any movies when it comes to sharing the net profit with the actors that sign up with expecting to get a percentage of the net proceeds. So what is a profit? I don't know. The guy just has such command of the language. Who knows what he means? And he added that his proceeds should amount to countless millions of dollars and hopefully be more than enough to pay back anyone who is still out there. And I assure you, Jordan, nobody is still out there. They long ago gave up expecting to get anything over and above whatever got auctioned off from your personal property, your apartments, your houses, all that stuff got divvied up and paid out. And the spokesman for Loretta E. Lynch, who's the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, housed in Brooklyn, Robert Nardoza, he took issue with Belfort's claims. He said Belfort's Facebook comments are substantially inaccurate. The government has seen nothing to suggest that even 100% of Belfort's profits from his book and the movie Wolf of Wall Street would yield, in his words, countless millions, much less the approximately 100 million that is still owed to the victims. I mean, Belfort, you got to learn to keep your damn mouth shut. The reason you wound up in jail in the first place was that you couldn't keep your mouth shut. You're a target, all right? The best thing you can do is lay low, let your attorneys talk to them, just give them what they want, or they'll find a reason to throw you in jail again, and they don't need much of one. And said among the extensive publicity surrounding the release of the movie have been articles that refer to his obligation to give back half of his gross income for 3 years after his supervisory release from prison, which took place in April of 2009. And his lawyers have said in letters to the U.S. attorney that the obligation to turn over half his income is over, and that they have made repeated offers to pay 100% of the profits from the movie and the books in a forbearance agreement. But Nardoza said that even before before Belfort's supervisory release, the government had to take aggressive steps to claim portions of Belfort's income. And after the government learned about his deal to publish the book, The Wolf of Wall Street, and that's back in 2007, it served subpoenas and restraining notices on Bantam Books, Warner Brothers, Appian Way for any payments they might have been obligated to make to Belfort. This is according to Nardoza. And the U.S. attorney served a restraining notice on Red Granite Pictures, which was the production company for the movie, after it became aware of Belfort's movie contract. And as a result, the government so far has received $125,000 from Red Granite and expects another $125,000 in the near term. So, this is what happens when you upset the government, which Belfort obviously has. And I'm not going to give him any asset protection advice. I'm sure he's got his own people for that, nor would I. He's not the kind of client I would want in my practice. So Mr. DeFeese, who's one of his attorneys, said that it had always been Belfort's position that he would turn over all of his book and movie proceeds to the government, and that the Facebook post was completely true. But truth, when you're dealing with somebody like Jordan Belfort, well, it doesn't mean exactly what truth would mean to you or to I. And Belfort has offered several accounts of how much money his victims might receive from his book and movie deals. And he's also got several interpretations of the status of his negotiations with the government. And, you just really can't believe anything that the guy says. But he's creating an industry of Belfort followers. And, Nardoza said that we're seeking to get assets from Belfort and people that owe him, and to do our best to get money back to victims. Whatever money that may be, we're going to look to seize it. The government can do that pretty effectively. But my guess is that Belfort is 2 or 3 steps ahead of them, and I won't even speculate how he might have done it. But what's interesting is that since the release of the film on Christmas Day, there's been a tidal wave of news coverage, and the Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law in New York City is sponsoring a program titled The Wolf of Wall Street, Behind the Scenes at Stratton Oakmont, which is going to take place later this month. And the panelists, it's kind of funny, and speakers include Priyat Bahara. He was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. And Gary Coleman, he was the FBI agent who led the investigation of Belfort, and other prominent lawyers. And in the meantime, Belfort has garnered hundreds of mostly positive comments on Facebook, including followers who've stated, "You are a good man, Jordan, and Bayside's got your back." And, I mean, he is what he is. A leopard cannot change his spots. And a con man always needs a new con with fresh victims. People just don't change like this guy is not changing. And, hey, it is what it is. But enjoy it because it's just a show. And it's good publicity for him in his new career, and enjoy it. Well, we got more New York news coming up next on the financialsurvivalnetwork.com, 1230 WBZT. These are tough times, and they're getting even tougher. The clock is ticking. The countdown to collapse is well underway. What are you going to do about it? Will you just wait for it to happen, or will you be ready when it happens? The decision is yours and yours alone. Join myself, Mickey Fulp, Robert Ian, David Morgan, Jeff Berwick, Elijah Johnson, Alan Butler, Gregory Manarino, Daniel Amaduri, Andy Hoffman, Tekoa De Silva, Trace Mayer, one of the world's leading Bitcoin authorities, Bix Weir, Jay Taylor, and Gary Christensen at the Liberty Mastermind Symposium in Las Vegas on February 21st and 22nd, and learn how to create your plan to survive the collapse. The last Liberty Mastermind Symposium was one of the most highly rated conferences ever, and this one promises to be even better. Don't miss it. Join us and register now at libertymastermind.us. libertymastermind.us. This one is going to be out of this world, and it's going to be even better because it's in Las Vegas, Nevada. Go to Liberty Mastermind US and sign up today. So you know that I love to bash public education, especially in urban areas, especially in New York City. And, New York City, maybe the educational system there has improved somewhat, but you wouldn't know it from this school. PS 106 in Far Rockaway, Queens, have gotten no math or reading and writing books for the rigorous Common Core curriculum, which is something we haven't talked about yet that I know you are interested in. You've sent me emails about it. But basically, there's no reading, writing, or arithmetic going on in this place at all. The 234 kids get no gym or art classes, but they get to watch movies every day. And if you've got a kid going to this school, I'd like to know what his or her favorite movie is that they watch there and how many movies they can watch in a day. And an anonymous source there said that the kids have seen more movies than Siskel and Ebert. Considering that they're both dead, they're probably got a good start on that. The school nurse has no office equipped with a sink, refrigerator, or cot. The library is a mess. Nothing's in order, said the source. It's a junk room. And no substitutes are hired when a teacher is absent. Students are divvied up among other classes. And a classroom that includes learning disabled kids doesn't have the required special ed teacher. Isn't that wonderful? 40 kindergartners have no room in the 3-story brick building. They sit all day in dilapidated trailers that reek of animal urine, according to a parent. Rats and squirrels noisily scamper in the walls and ceilings. I mean, do you believe this? This is disgusting. The principal, whose name is Marcella Sills, I guarantee you she didn't get her job through the New York Times. She is a crony of somebody in the Board of Ed. She joined PS 106 9 years ago, is a frequent no-show. She didn't come to school last Monday or Tuesday. On Tuesday, she showed up at 3:30 p.m. I guess everything was gone. On Wednesday, the Post found her at home in Westbury, Long Island, all day before emerging at 2:50 p.m., school dismissal time. Wearing a fur coat, she took her BMW for a spin. She showed up at school Thursday, but not Friday. I mean, this reads like from some, you can't even imagine this. And Sills, she's 48. When she does go to work, it's rarely before 11 a.m., and often hours later, say sources familiar with her schedule. She strolls in whenever she wants. The school hasn't had a payroll secretary in years, and a Department of Education spokesman said Sills was required to report her absences and tardiness to District 27 Superintendent Michelle Lloyd Bay, a hyphenated name. You know how I feel about hyphenated names, but would not say whether Sills did so last week. Lloyd Bay did not return a call. Sills hung up on a reporter. And when she is out, an assistant principal is left in charge. Yet Sills, who gets a $128,000 plus salary, also pockets overtime pay, $2,900 for 83 hours in 2011, the latest records available show. I mean, and you wonder why the system is failing. Concerned principals like Sills. And the school is a complete S-hole, according to somebody who said so, and no one cares, a community member said. I mean, it just gets worse and worse. And this one's been there for 9 years, and no one cares about it. How did they miss this? I mean, it's just amazing that there's no monitoring, there's no supervision, and you can't fire a principal in New York. She'll probably be sent to a rubber room, and she'll probably just sit there, and if they do fire her, she'll get a pension, a 6-figure pension for the rest of her life, and the kids be damned, the taxpayers be damned. Nobody cares. But the kids do get to watch a lot of movies, so if they want to be movie reviewers when they grow up, I guess they'll have adequate training, won't they? I mean, it said the building, it's isolated, sits a block and a half from the beach, surrounded by vacant, weed-choked lots. The road behind it is strewn with trash bags and broken TVs. And, I mean, you just can't even imagine this thing. 2 kindergarten classes moved into temporary classroom units in the yard. The other children moved into the main building, forcing classes to squeeze into small offices and storage rooms. Pre-K classes sit in the auditorium, but had to move to the cafeteria during the movies. I mean, kids, here's the movies that they watched. Fat Albert, very educational. Alvin and the Chipmunks. Well, man, I'm just sorry that my kids are all grown up now, because I might have wanted them to go see this. And Monsters, Inc. And this is just very special. I'm really glad that that schools like this exist to go warehouse these kids. And also, the teachers have gotten no curricula since the hurricane. Last February, the DOE announced several new options, including Go Math for grades K through 5 and Ready Gen, the state education department's core knowledge for English language arts. But, of course, they haven't gotten any books. And 5 months into the school year, PS 106 classes still don't have the books or teacher's guides. They have no reading program, no math program, no nothing. Sills blames outside administrators for not sending the materials. I wonder how many times she's called the DOE headquarters to complain about it. And nobody says nothing. Nobody's filed a grievance. Everyone's scared to death because Sills will retaliate. And parents wonder if the higher-ups in the Board of Ed know what the heck is going on here. And these kids are going to grow up to be criminals and to be miscreants. They'll be fourth or fifth generation welfare recipients and will never produce anything in their lives. So as a follow-up to the story, a top city school official was on scene at what now they're calling PS 106, the School of No, to investigate the shocking conditions that the Post exposed on Sunday as angry parents and a city council member demanded answers. And woman says, every day my son tells me all they do is watch TV all day long. I teach him how to read, but this school has not helped him at all. I think it's done worse than not help him. I think it's hurt him. This gal, Ivelisa Lantigua, 39, whose son is a second grader at PS 106. If this doesn't warrant a lawsuit, they should get that attorney that's suing all the unions and the schools in California for depriving their kids of an education and sue the New York City school system, the Marcella Sills, the principal, and the union as well. I mean, this is just shocking. And the other thing is, it's the first time that she's been on time for work, Marcella Sills, in 7 years. Can you imagine this? And Queensboro President Melinda Katz called the charges disturbing, and she hopes to find out information about what's going on with the kids. Well, Melinda, if you were doing your job and maybe visited a school once in a while, you would have known about this already. I mean, it's just incredible. And the Sills, she forced fifth graders to pay $110 apiece for a formal end-of-the-year party at which the principal makes them dress up in tuxes and gowns. Fifth graders. I mean, is that bizarre or what? I mean, fifth graders are going to dress up in formal wear? I mean, she should be summarily dismissed, fired. They should shut this school down, and the place is rat infested. It's just disgusting that they allow kids to be treated this way, and they call this education. I mean, man, something really, really wrong with this. And I wonder how the condom distribution is going in this school. I hope that program is complying with all state and federal regulations. And they need to get rid of this person, banish her to Siberia, wherever that is. And it's just really shocking. Oh, they have a quote from Salaka Cox, an NYU freshman who graduated from PS 106 on Sills' watch, and she said she's been getting away with it for years. And it's amazing. She cuts quite a figure when she does appear. She arrives in a BMW wearing expensive fur coats. She makes a base salary of $128,000. She's evil. Former PS 106 teacher Patricia Walsh said she finds pleasure in ruining people's lives. Sounds to me like she's well qualified to be where she is, and nobody cares. But now that they've been caught out and called out on it, well, maybe now something will happen. But think of the hundreds, maybe thousands of kids' lives that she's affected in the most negative way imaginable, and think about all the bad things that she's helped start in their lives. And think about why you don't want to send your kids to schools like this, and why homeschooling is taking off along with libertarianism. FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com, 1230 WBZT. This is Triple Lutz 331. We are back on the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz, 1230 WBZT. So here's a cool app if you're into smartphones, Android or iPhone. If you're thinking about quitting your job, there's a new humorous app that aims to relieve the stress and anxiety of confronting the boss with the news by sending him a text message instead. And although the iPhone app is meant to be funny, its creators are hoping it will take off and people will use it to leave jobs. The Quit Your Job app takes users through a series of steps to determine why they are leaving and then crafts a text message that is sent directly to their boss. Pretty cool, huh? And despite all the advances in technology, we still quit our jobs the same way we did hundreds of years ago, said Alex Duzet, chief executive officer of The Ladders, a New York-based employment company that produces the app. So you see, this is just a publicity stunt for The Ladders. I mean, I'm on their mailing list, and I know nobody will ever hire me, so I'll never have to use the app because I'm unemployable. And something around 2.3 million Americans left their jobs last October, citing reasons such as dissatisfaction with career growth, how much they're getting paid, feeling unrecognized, according to Department of Labor figures. And look, in love, as in life, as in employment, the direct approach is always the best. Use it. You'll be happier about it. Promise. So, great article here about state leaders closely watching migrating millionaires. So if you remember, back last January, Phil Mickelson hinted that he was going to leave California because of a big jump in his federal and state rates, and he was met with venom and derision. Like, how could you leave this state? It's your duty to get raped by the tax man, and how dare you think of leaving California because your taxes are too high? That's terrible. How could you do such a thing? And later he apologized, saying it was insensitive to state his opinion publicly when people are living paycheck to paycheck. I don't agree with that. I think it was politically, he was just the PC crowd shamed him into it. He's still living in California, but he will get out one day quietly. Other wealthy people say they've moved out mainly or partly because of skyrocketing tax rates. And it's obvious it's happening in New York, in California, in Illinois, in New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Taxachusetts, Rhode Island, Maryland. I mean, just go down the states with the high tax rates. It's happening all over. And whether you sympathize or not with millionaires migrating out of California has serious consequences for the state's bottom line, which is why they should wake up and smell the coffee. And supposedly, state leaders are watching closely, but that's all they're doing is they're watching. They're not doing anything else about it. In 2011, the top 1% of tax returns accounted for 41% of the state's personal income tax revenue, and that was before Proposition 30 raised taxes on the rich. Meanwhile, about half of California adults paid no state income tax that year, according to an estimate from the state finance department. Do you know what percentage of Florida adults paid state income tax in 2011? 0. And that's the way it should be. So, guy by the name of Byron Goldberg, who founded the Bleacher Report sports website and sold it to Turner Broadcasting for $200 million in mid-2012, is moving his primary residence from San Francisco to New York this year. A major reason, he says, is Prop 30, the way it was applied retroactively. It's too bad he couldn't have moved retroactively. Taxes in New York City, where he has started a new website, bustle.com, are also high. He says his exodus was more about creating a statement than it was about maximizing his income. He's a bad example. There's plenty more examples of people that have moved out of New York and California to states like Texas, Florida. Corporations have moved out. Many corporations have moved out of California and New York over the years. Mobil Oil, Texaco, Exxon. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. They just said enough. State taxes, we just don't need to pay them. And they leave. And it's happening now with the hedge funds. Many of them are opening up branch offices in Palm Beach County and gradually, slowly moving their operations out of New York. movie industry exclusively in California, and now slowly but surely it's moving out. And I'm not talking about the porn industry either. Going to keep on happening more and more until these idiot politicians wake up. Lee Schneider, give an example, a hedge fund salesman, works from home, also cited Prop 30 as deciding factor for his move from Walnut Creek to Austin, Texas in 2012. He was a California native, built a $2 million house at the foot of Mount Diablo, took a loss on the sale, but could make half of it back in 1 year of tax savings, he says. His neighborhood in Texas, and like I said, Texas has no state income tax, is full of cars with license plate frames from California dealerships. And on a flight from Austin to L.A. shortly before Christmas, 11 of the 12 seats in the emergency row occupied by people who had moved from California to Texas. And yet, Governor Cuomo loves the Four Seasons. Can't get enough of him. Well, him and all the poor people in New York will be there enjoying the Four Seasons together. There's another telling statistic. On the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe, where there is no state income tax, 151 homes sold for more than $1 million in 2013. That was 86% higher than the previous year. On the California side, only 67 homes sold for more than $1 million, down 9% from 2012. I'm sure it's just accidental. So, as this disingenuous article, and it's printed in sfgate.com, San Francisco Gate, Communist City, it's too soon to say whether these anecdotes represent a larger trend, but state leaders realize the growing dependence on personal income tax revenue. The legislative analyst's office predicts that they will comprise a record 66% of the state's general fund. It's not too late. Telling you it's happening. There is a virtual stampede of people leaving high income tax states, coming to lower tax states. It's happening all around. The only people who aren't leaving are the people who can't. They're sticking around. But trust me, this is no accident of fate. It's no quirk of fate. Tiger Woods, by his own admission, moved out of California many, many years ago to avoid burgeoning state income tax. Milton Friedman used to say it, when freedom is under attack, when taxes become confiscatory, people vote with their feet. Plain and simple. And just quickly, there's an article here in Bloomberg by, what's that guy's name? Ezra Klein. And it's entitled, What Liberals Don't Get About Single Payer. And something you should take a look at. What it comes down to is that he says is that nationalized health care, single payer, is not going to solve the problem of the high cost of American health care. And he gives examples gathered by the International Federation of Health Plans. An MRI in the U.S., $1,121 on average. France, $363. Appendectomy in the U.S., $13,851. Switzerland, $47.82. C-section, U.S., $36.76. Canada, $606. Bottle of Nexium, $202 in the U.S., $32 in the U.K. So basically, his thing, his pitch is an argument for price fixing. Let the government set the prices. And what he really doesn't get into is an analysis of why the prices are so high. And yeah, Other countries do set prices, and that is an issue that needs to be addressed. But what we really need to be doing is analyzing why the prices are so high, and that is because the government and third-party pays for it. And I don't want to get into the whole economic argument and why a doctor's visit to my house in 1960 used to cost $10 or $5, and now you can't even get one, and a doctor's visit cost $150. It's the whole concept of government money going into it and the government being an inexhaustible fountain of payments. The fact of the matter is that more than half of the payments to the medical profession to date, at the present, something around 55 or 56% was a number I heard, and I won't vouch for that number. I'll do some more research on it, come from Medicare and Medicaid, Obamacare, whatever, Veterans Association, the Veteran Affairs, VA, are paying most of the medical expenses, and there's no real competition in providing for medical procedures. And the patient, the consumer of the service, has very little interest at the present time in the actual cost of the service being provided. So when you take into account all of these factors, no wonder the costs are so high. And the government has in place many rules and regulations that protect the income and the ability of big pharma, hospitals, and other providers to charge whatever they like and protect them from competition, protect them from new sources of doctors, new sources of nurse practitioners, etc. Without getting into the whole thing, highly suggest that you read this, Bloomberg.com, great article, sheds a lot of light. He's got one part of the equation right, that the insurance companies are not the cause of the high cost of medical care. He doesn't go into why the cost is so high, why in 1965, before Medicare was passed, before Medicaid got passed, it wasn't so high. You need to understand that. That's it for today. This was another Triple Lutz Report, episode 331. It's been another Triple Lutz Report. Kerry Lutz signing off.
Hi, it's Kerry Lutz. I recently decided to move my retirement account into physical precious metals to hedge against the coming times. If you want to move an existing retirement account into physical precious metals that you can hold in your hand, tax-free, there's no company that can do it more quickly and efficiently than Regal Assets. It took them just 24 hours to open my new IRA account, and all I had to do was fill out one simple form. The best part is that Regal Assets does all the work for you. They cover the setup and administrative costs for 2013. If you're interested in making the same move I did, call 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620. That's 855-678-6620, or visit them at regalassets.com. You'll be glad you did, and tell them Kerry sent you.
Our friend Tom Dyson at the Palm Beach Letter is giving away free copies of a really cool report he put together called How to Protect Yourself from America's New Secret Police. Inside, you'll learn all sorts of simple, everyday tricks you can use to make yourself a little less visible and vulnerable to scammers, hackers, and even the federal government. For instance, inside Tom's report, you'll learn which free internet email service never to use. This company doesn't care if your account gets hacked or not. 4 things the government must tell you if they request your social security number. And how to spot skimmers lying in wait on ATMs and gas pumps, and much, much more. These tricks and secrets are low-hanging fruit ideas. You don't have to invest time or much money into them. Most are free. But by taking some basic measures, you can make your privacy much harder to invade than your neighbors.
Tom's report is available for a limited time to listeners who take a trial subscription to his newsletter. Just visit the Financial Survival Network homepage for more information, or go to www.palmbeachletter2.com. That's www.palmbeachletter2.com.
The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.